Hare Krishna, welcome everybody. So today we are going to begin chapter 14. And before we begin, I'll say the prayers to Guru and God, and I'll play the Guru mantra. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalake Chakshuru Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna.
गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः.
Hare Krishna. So I'll play the slokas. Today we are going to cover 14.1 to 14.9.
अथ चतुर्दशोऽध्यायः गुणत्रयविभागयोगः श्रीभगवानुवाच परं भूयः प्रवक्ष्यामि ज्ञानानां ज्ञानमुत्तमम् यज्ञात्वा मुनयः सर्वे परां सिद्धिमितो गताः इदं ज्ञानमुपाश्रित्य मम साधर्म्यमागताः सर्गेऽपि नोपजायन्ते प्रलये न व्यथन्ति च मम योनिर्महद्ब्रह्म तस्मिन् गर्भं दधाम्यहम् सम्भवः सर्वभूतानां ततो भवति भारत सर्वयोनिषु कौन्तेय मूर्तयः सम्भवन्ति याः तासां ब्रह्ममहद्योनिरहं बीजप्रदः पिता सत्त्वं रजस्तम इति गुणाः प्रकृतिसम्भवाः निबध्नन्ति महाबाहो देहे देहिनमव्ययम् तत्र सत्त्वं निर्मलत्वात् प्रकाशकमनामयम् सुखसङ्गेन बध्नाति ज्ञानसङ्गेन चानघ रजो रागात्मकं विद्धि तृष्णासङ्गसमुद्भवम् तन्निबध्नाति कौन्तेय कर्मसङ्गेन देहिनम् तमस्त्वज्ञानजं विद्धि मोहनं सर्वदेहिनाम् प्रमादालस्य निद्राभिस्तन्निबध्नाति भारत सत्त्वं सुखे सञ्जयति रजः कर्मणि भारत ज्ञानमावृत्य तु तमः प्रमादे सञ्जयत्युत.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. 14.1 The Supreme Divine Personality said, I shall speak again of the supreme knowledge, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages attained the supreme perfection in this world. 14.2 Taking refuge in this knowledge, they attain my same nature. They are not born even in creation, nor are they disturbed in dissolution. 14.3 The great Prakriti is the womb. In that I place the seed. From that comes the birth of all beings, O descendant of Bharata. 14.4 O son of Kunti, whatever forms are born in all the various wombs, the great Brahman, Mula Prakriti, is their great womb, and I am the seed-giving father. 14.5 The modes of goodness, that is Sattvam, passion, that is Rajas, and ignorance, that is Tamas, which are born of material nature, bind the indestructible eternal soul to the perishable body, O mighty armed one. 14.6. Among these, Sattvam, that is the mode of goodness, being the purest, is illuminating and healthy. It binds by attachment to happiness and knowledge, O sinless one. 14.7. Know that Rajas, that is the mode of passion, is born of desire, and attachment and greed arise from it, and it binds the embodied soul through attachment to fruitive actions, O son of Kunti. 14.8. But know that Tamas, that is mode of ignorance, is the cause of illusion for the embodied souls. It deludes all living beings through negligence, laziness, and sleep, O descendant of Bharata. 14.9. Sattva Guna binds one to happiness, Rajo Guna to action, and Tamo Guna, by obscuring knowledge, binds one to negligence, O Bharata. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So yeah, welcome to this awesome new beginning. And the North Indian calendar, we're already in Margashirsha. And as per Maharashtrian calendars, it just started. And South Indian calendar, we call it Margari. That's going to start like in another week or so. So very spiritually, very important time of the year. And I think it's a great time to be reading something which is so practically important. So this chapter 14 has got a lot of profound practical wisdom, practical knowledge. So let's quickly have an introduction to what we studied so far and where we are going. So in the previous chapter, Kshetragya Vibhāga Yoga, where Krishna was talking about the metaphysical truths. What truths? Truths about Kshetra, which is the body or the field, and Kshetragya. And so that chapter was more like a gateway for understanding the nature of existence itself. And it knowingly, we may not have realized, but that chapter actually provided the groundwork for this chapter. That was kind of the foundation on which chapter 14 will be, building upon. So that's why it's important for us to understand and link them together that way. So what were some of the major highlights of 13th chapter? First, it was about Kshetra and Kshetragya. Of course, that was the key part of that chapter. And Krishna spoke about how we should be aware of that distinction. We should be aware of the distinction between that which is changing and that which doesn't change. And then he spoke about the supreme knower, the Netha. And he also spoke about the concept of Paramatma, where he said, the knower of one field is our soul, but the knower of all the fields is what he called as the supreme knower, which is the Paramatma. And then in slokas 8 to 12, he spoke about all the various qualities, such as, who remembers which was the first quality, most important quality? Yes, Simranji, which was the first one?
Amanitvam.
Excellent. So he spoke about all those virtues and he started with Amanitvam being the first one. And so he said how developing those qualities are so important because they're going to help us absorb the wisdom and implement them in our lives. And then he spoke about Prakriti and Purusha and how they cooperate with each other and how they interact for all the magic to happen. So the key word we used was when, the never changing and the ever changing, when they come together, that's when all the magic of this universe happens. And finally, I think he spoke about the purpose of life. So he said, our ultimate goal has to be that self-realization and achieving moksha. And he said that can be achieved through the right knowledge of Kshetragya and what is going to come now. In chapter 14, Krishna will shift the focus now. He will shift the focus to the Gunas, the three Gunas. Anybody remembers the three Gunas? What are the three? Okay, the same. Yes. Ashaji, what are the Gunas?
Sattva, Rajas and Tamas.
Excellent. Now Krishna is going to now shift the focus to these gunas, because see, we all studied earlier that the ego is what binds the soul. The ego is what causes bondage. The soul thinks it is the body because of ego. This is what we studied earlier. And now Krishna will go deeper and he will talk about how these gunas provide the actual framework. In other words, they are kind of the foundation for ego itself. So it's very important. So he goes very deep into all of that, because see, our behavior, our thoughts, our actions, everything depends on these gunas. And it is these, like our thoughts, our actions, this is what is strengthening the ego. And when the ego becomes stronger, the bond becomes stronger between ego and the body. That's why this is so important, this knowledge we are having. So let us have also a quick comparison between what we studied in chapter 13 and what we are going to cover here. So in chapter 13, Krishna introduced the concept of Prakriti. And then in 14th chapter, he's going to explain the three agents of this Prakriti. In chapter 13, he spoke about liberation. Remember, he said you can get liberated once you have this knowledge of Kshetra Kshetragya. And chapter 14, he will help us understand what binds us. In other words, liberation from what? Why are we unliberated in the first place? So he's going to explain that bondage here in this chapter. And in chapter 13, he was focusing on knowledge. Correct? And in chapter 14, he's going to show how the gunas impact our acquisition of knowledge itself. So for example, even right now, like we are all listening to the same message from Krishna, but do you think each and every one of us is acquiring the same knowledge? We are listening to the same thing, but are we acquiring the same knowledge? No. Why? Because we are all not having the exact same combination of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. So in all of us, the gunas are acting in different proportions, and based on that, even the knowledge that we acquire will be impacted, and that is what Krishna is going to focus on in this chapter. You see how the connection is between chapter 13 and 14. So what can we expect in chapter 14? We can expect to know about the nature of these gunas, and we can expect how to recognize the dominance of these gunas in ourselves, and how to develop more discernment. Very important. See, for example, I previously sent a message in the group saying how we should have Samadarshana, how we should approach even strangers with humility. That is important, but all that will be helpful only if we have the discernment. So you cannot apply that knowledge blindly. And where will the discernment come from? That comes from knowledge. And how will you have the right knowledge? It will come from inculcating the right gunas. So that is what we are going to hear. And then we are also going to focus on the liberation. How to get liberated and go beyond these gunas. So that is kind of what you can expect in 14th chapter. So that is why this chapter is titled as Guṇa Traya Vibhāga Yoga. So which basically means the yoga of the division of the three gunas. Very profound insights here on the fundamental qualities of material nature. So Sattva is goodness, Rajas is passion, and Tamas is ignorance. People use slightly different words there. But at the end of the day, Sattva is what is highest, Rajas is in the middle, and Tamas is bottom. And these are the building blocks of Prakriti, because we studied about Prakriti, but then what is Prakriti itself made of? And Krishna says that these gunas are the building blocks of Prakriti itself. So every aspect of existence, be it physical, be it mental, be it spiritual, it is all an outcome of those gunas only. Or it is all consisting of those gunas. So that is why we need to really understand the gunas. Very, very important. And so let us quickly revisit the concepts, because I'm talking about Prakriti Purusha. I'm not sure if we remember, but what we studied so far, Prakriti is that ever-changing dynamic aspect of the universe. And Prakriti is what Krishna called as Kshetra, the field, where all the drama of life unfolds. Whereas Purusha is that eternal, unchanging consciousness. And that is what Krishna called as Kshetragya, the knower. Is that concept clear, or do people have any doubts there? Because I want to make sure that there is no doubts before we continue. We are all clear there? Excellent. So once Kshetragya is clear, because the aspect that has to be very clear is not just that Kshetragya means knower and Kshetra means the field. The aspect that has to be very clear is how Kshetragya is unchanging. No? And we need to be aware of that, aware of that particular aspect. For example, how many of you remember how your face looked when you were like 5 or 6 years old? Some of you are saying you remember. Okay. And you definitely know that today your face looks very different. Correct? Now your face is the Kshetra because it is changing, ever changing. But you are saying that I remember how my face looked when I was 5 years old. So who is that I? Kshetragya. Correct? And now you are saying that I now know that my face looks different. Now who is this I? This is also Kshetragya. Correct? How is it possible that you are able to tell that you looked a particular way when you were 5 and you are looking something different today? It is possible only if the person looking was the same, na? If the person who was looking was also different, then this comparison is pointless. There will be no comparison at all, correct? Because you will not even know how you looked like when you were 5 years old. But you know. So the knower is unchanging. And what is changing is the Kshetra. Your face changes. But you who is looking at your face does not change. That is the concept that we need to really soak in, and that is the crux of this whole Kshetragya concept. And then Sri Krishna, he talks about the binding power of these gunas. This comes in 14.5, where he says that the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, which are born of material nature, they bind the soul to the perishable body, O mighty armed one. So he's explaining that, although the soul is beyond material nature, although the soul is eternal, the gunas are the reason for the ego, and then the ego is what is binding that soul to this material temporary world. And anything, what we are, what we do, it's all depending on these gunas. And because the gunas themselves are very dynamic. So today you indulge in some bad habit, your proportion of gunas will dramatically change. And that will impact your consciousness, that will impact the next set of decisions you take. That will create an entire different branch in your life. That is why Krishna says consistency is very important. It is not enough to be good for one day. It is not enough to be good for 1 week. Because every time we are giving in to the negative gunas, it takes us on a different branch. Your entire trajectory then can change from that point onwards. Okay, that is very, very important to understand. And I don't know if we have any computer digital artists here. Anybody who has done computer graphics or art using computers? No? Nobody? A computer science? Come on. Yeah, Ashaji. Ashaji is raising her hand. Ashaji, what are the 3 primary colors that we use?
Red, green, and blue.
Excellent. See, when I was starting my journey on computer science, this was one of the most fascinating things for me. When I studied, when I learned that there are only 3 basic colors, at least from the computer science perspective: red, green, and blue. And depending on how you mix it, in what proportion you mix it, you can have millions of colors. Like today, even an ordinary computer and an ordinary monitor, it claims to have 65 million colors it can represent. 65 million, but they are just permutation and combination of 3 colors. In what quantity we mix them. See, just like that, these 3 gunas, depending on which proportion they are active, they give rise to this infinite magic that we see in the universe, everything that is manifesting. Somebody looks good, somebody doesn't look good, somebody sounds good, somebody doesn't sound good, somebody is intelligent, somebody is not. But at the core, it is all a play of only those three gunas. See how profound. And Krishna says, if you can understand that, see, you cannot go and try to fix or learn all 65 million colors. How many people even know what 65 million colors are? You cannot try to manipulate that. But if you understand that at the core it is these three, that gives you the power, correct? That is the whole concept that Krishna is trying to talk about here. So if you use the same analogy, if red, green, blue, they are all at the maximum possible level, then what color we get? We get white. And if red, green and blue, they are all zero, then what we get is black. That is no color basically. You can say black or you can say no color, because a computer cannot represent no color and our eyes cannot perceive no color. So the closest thing we can say is it is black, but that's the same thing. So this is the whole concept of Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. When all the gunas are existing in the complete full potential, then that is Saguna Brahman. And when that entity has overcome all gunas and there are absolutely no gunas active, that is the Nirguna Brahman. And anything that we can see in the universe lies between these two extremes. Anything that we see is in between the spectrum of Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. There cannot be anything which is outside of this range. That is how Krishna is trying to explain. So quickly, let us see what Krishna talks about these three gunas. So for Sattva, Krishna says, O sinless one, Sattva is pure, it is illuminating, and it is free from evil. However, this is the most important part. Please pay attention. After saying that Sattva is pure and illuminating and free from evil, Krishna then says, this is 14.6, where Krishna says, it creates bondage through attachment to happiness and knowledge. In other words, even Sattva creates bondage. But it is a bondage which feels pleasant, because it is a bondage through happiness and knowledge, but it is still bondage. So in the Bhagavad Purana, the Sattva Guna, the importance of Sattva Guna is explained. You can take the number. It is 1.2.24 from the Srimad Bhagavatam. If you want, you can go read the complete shloka there. So it goes like Parthiva Darunaha Dhumaha Tasmat Agnihi Triyamayaha Tamasaha tu Rajaha Tasmat Satyam Yat Brahma Darshanam. So he says, from Tamas arises Rajas. In other words, this shloka is using the analogy of earth. So it says, from earth arises smoke. And he says, but then from that, the fire comes. And the fire is attributed to Sattva now. So we saw Tamas. From Tamas, you get Rajas, which is smoke. From smoke, you get fire, which is Sattva. And Sattva is now related with the Vedas and all of that. Similarly, from ignorance comes passion, and from passion comes goodness. It's very important. I mean, this may all seem technical, but they contain the basic, the foundational knowledge about the life and existence and everything around us. I'll try to simplify this for you. In essence, what they are talking about is the progression. The progression from something very gross to something more subtle. So Tamas is the most gross. And from gross, you get something more subtle, which is Rajas. And then from Rajas, you evolve to something even more subtle, which is Sattva. So it is an upward journey of consciousness is what is important. And our focus, that is why, has to be the upward journey. Take the soul or take ourselves through these stages to more and more subtle levels until we reach Sattva, and then we overcome Sattva also. Because Sattva is essential. A predominance of Sattva is essential before we can reach liberation or before we can reach the perception of Brahman. For Rajas, what Krishna has said, this is 14.7. So 14.6, Krishna speaks about Sattva 14.7 he speaks about Rajas, and 14.8 he will speak about Tamas. And Krishna says that know that Rajas is born of desire and attachment, and greed arises from it. See, just like we say that, Rajas comes from Tamas and so on, like that, Krishna is talking about what is the root from which what is arising. So he's saying that, desire and attachment, they cause greed. And then that causes bondage. No, because when you have greed, what happens? You're always running behind results. You're always running behind fruits. That is greed. And that is why, again, if you now go back to that famous sloka, Karmanyevadikaraste mafaleshu kadachana, Krishna said, don't have expectation on results. Now we see yet another perspective here. Krishna is saying, because that is a manifestation of greed, and greed is because of Rajas. And if you are in Rajas, how can you then go to Sattva? And if you don't go to Sattva, then how can you get to liberation? See, so many perspectives. Now you can beautifully assign to that one aspect of not having expectations on results. I just wanted to also, just to make it more interesting, I can tell you that this, what we speak about here as greed that Krishna is talking about, the same thing has been taught by Buddha also, Gautama Buddha. So this greed, there is another word in Sanskrit called Trishna. If you remember, there is another word we use, Mriga Trishna. So this is, Mriga Trishna has the Trishna in it. So Trishna is that thirst. And in the Pali language, because a lot of these Buddhist teachings, they are written in Pali, there the word used is tanha. I know in Hindi that word has a slightly different meaning, but it comes from this Pali word tanha. And that word means the not just desire, it means the insatiable desire or craving. And Buddha says that is the root of all suffering. Dukkha. It's a very famous quote from Buddha, where Buddha said desire is the cause of all suffering, but it is not just because it is desire, but it is because of the nature of desire, which is insatiable. You cannot fulfill it. You cannot really satisfy. This is one of the first sermons by Gautama Buddha, where that is documented as the Four Noble Truths. You can do your own research later on what the Four Noble Truths are, and you will get more insights into that. Buddha has beautifully spoken about all of this. Of course, he uses a lot of technical words. For example, he says that, Tanaha itself arises from Vedana. Vedana means sensation. And Vedana itself arises from Phassa, which means contact of yours. See, why I'm telling you all of this is there are parallels. Krishna is talking about the same thing. Krishna is saying how one gives rise to another, which gives rise to another. So you need to be very aware, consciously aware of whatever you can perceive now, where it came from and what it is going to lead to. See, very, very important. And so why we are talking about all of that is, although Buddha says that desire or tanha is the root cause, and Krishna says greed, or even the word Krishna is used, is the cause, that is still not the sole cause, because desire doesn't come out of thin air. Where does the desire itself come? Because we are all now studying Jnana Yoga. We are all trying to understand at a deeper level. So Krishna, Gautama Buddha, they are all explaining where even desire comes from. Because if we understand that, then we can probably have better control over it. Like as Buddha said, desire is coming from sensation. And sensation comes from contact between our senses. In other words, first our eyes will look at something. Let us say our eyes are looking at a beautiful rose. Okay, so the contact of the senses with an object, that is the first. Now that creates a sensation. What is that sensation? Your eyes feel like, wow, it looks so pretty, or it looks so beautiful. That is the sensation. That is what is termed as Vedana. And what happens with that sensation? Now that sensation creates a desire. Now you want to touch that flower, or now you want to pluck that flower, or now you want more of that flower. That is Tana. You see, because you can never have enough. All your life you will be running behind roses, but no matter how many roses you get, you will never say, I have had enough roses. I'm satisfied. It's not going to happen. The next day, a more beautiful rose comes in front of you. You want that now. You see? But then at the end of the day, if you go back, if you trace, you will see that it all started with what it all started with? Passa. That means the contact of your senses with an object. That is what first happened. Now, if you remember, where Krishna spoke about how to withdraw your senses. You remember that lesson from Krishna? Who remembers that lesson that Krishna spoke about? Yes, Sandeep ji, what was that?
Pratyahara.
Excellent. Beautiful.
Tortoise withdraws itself into the shell.
Awesome. Applause. Very, very happy. Yes, but now you understand, right? So Krishna is not just saying things. There is the science. It is such a deep science, and now gradually we are unraveling it. And Gautama Buddha has said the same thing. He has said that first the senses come in touch or contact with something, and everything, the trouble starts from there. So if you can go to the root cause and take care of your senses, then you don't have to deal with desire. Because by the time desire comes, it is already too late. That is why we said, you cannot say, I'm not going to think of a rose or I'm not going to think of a chocolate. It's not going to happen because, the root cause, somebody is taking the tree and as long as you don't stop that, you cannot just go and try to stop all the fruits from falling down. That is the whole profound lesson here. And again, what Krishna is saying is, understanding this is what is important. This science. He says, if you understand, then you will be able to navigate through these gunas and you will be able to get freedom and liberation. Otherwise, these gunas will only be controlling you. That is the whole idea. Just for your own benefit, just for further knowledge, Gautama Buddha went very deep into this topic. There is the entire book written on that. But at the core, he has said that even that tanha itself operates through 3 channels. And this is just for our knowledge. It's okay if it feels a little too technical. First one he says is kama tanha, which is tanha for sensual pleasures. Like, pleasant sight, pleasant sound, pleasant taste. That is all kama tanha. Then he says the next is bhava tanha, which is, the desire to be someone or, be at a particular state of being, like you are desiring that. That is bhava tanha. The third is vibhava tanha. Vibhava tanha is you are craving for non-existence. In other words, you are craving for disassociation. In other words, I could say that the first 2 are attachment, which is troubling and creating. That is attachment-based tanha. And the third one is aversion-based tanha, which you are now trying not to be something, and you are trying to escape from that. So in the first kama tanha, you are desiring for a pleasant sight. Whereas in the last vibhava tanha, you are trying to avoid any unpleasant sight. But both are tanhas. And this is exactly what Krishna explained as don't have either attachment or aversion, because they both are going to make us keep running either towards or against. So what are we to do with this knowledge? At this point, what we need to do is internalize this knowledge and become more aware. That awareness is what is most important for now. For example, if you find yourself being agitated, ask yourself, what am I agitated about? Become more aware. Question yourself. Question that thought. Question that agitation. Try to go deeper. What is causing my agitation? Try to go. Okay, you may say, okay, I'm agitated because this person spoke badly. Don't stop there. Say, why does this person talking badly cause an agitation in me? Then you will go one step deeper and you will say, that was not pleasant. Okay, but it is not pleasant then, but still, why is it bothering you? then you will realize that you are trying to avoid that which is not pleasant. So like that, if you keep going deeper and deeper, you will realize that at the end of the day, it is either your attachment or aversion which is the problem. For example, there are some people, if you use the foul language, they will get extremely disturbed. Just by hearing the foul language, they will get disturbed. Even if you are not calling them any names. Just two people talking and two people using foul language, they are just an observer. Still, they will feel disturbed. I know many such people. On the contrary, there are some people who will go to a concert to listen to a heavy metal song which is full of foul language, and they will enjoy it. See, ye bhi foul language, that is also foul language. But here it is causing agitation, there it is causing pleasure. Why? So the problem is not in foul language. So where is the problem? So like that, if we go and dissect, this is what Krishna is trying to teach us. He's saying, understand the framework, understand the science, and then that will give you the power. That will put power in your hands. Now you decide how it impacts you or does not impact you. Very profound. And lastly, tamas. This comes in 14.8, where Krishna says that tamas is born of ignorance. That is the cause of delusion. And it is binding through how? It is binding through negligence, laziness, sleep. These are all the symptoms. So people who are in a state of tamas, they are usually very lethargic people. They are the people for any, they look forward for any free time. If you ask them, how are you going to spend your free time? Oh, I'm going to sleep. See, sleeping because of tiredness is something different, but sleeping as a habit is different. And we need to just be aware of this. If we have this tendency to all the time go and sleep, then we should at least be aware that tamoguna is being predominant. That's all. If you have the awareness, then we can do something. You cannot control the sleep. You cannot say, oh, now I'm going to force my eyes open. That's not going to work. But you need to understand that is because of tamoguna. Then if you then question further, why tamoguna? It was probably because of something I ate, or is it because of my habits? Like that, you keep dissecting, you keep going deeper, then you will find the root cause. And then it is so easy. Once you start then attacking the root cause, the symptom will automatically take care of itself. Also, Krishna says that this tamoguna always causes confusion. There are some people, even if you tell them 2 plus 2 equal to 4, they will be confused. But that is the function of this tamoguna. When tamas is predominant, confusion is the very natural side effect. So we have to be very... So why are we talking about that? Because these people can never be connected with reality. They will always be disconnected. So if you want to be connected to the absolute reality, you should absolutely avoid tamas. That is the whole lesson here. So if you see in 14.8, Krishna is talking about how tamas anchors the soul in delusion. And he talks about 3 symptoms, 3 aspects. What are the 3? Pramada, which is negligence. Second, alasya. Alasya is laziness. And third is nidra. Nidra means, here in this context, excessive sleep. The sleep that you need, but excessive sleep. Because negligence means you are going to be always careless. You are not going to be paying attention to anything. Laziness means you are never going to do rightful action. You are very lazy. And excessive sleep is you don't have time to be aware of anything, because you are pretty much dead most of the time. So tamas is the major hurdle, not just in spiritual development, but also in material development. That's why we need to be very, very mindful of that. And then Krishna explains how the gunas are influencing not just external actions, but also internal thoughts and emotions. Why we are studying this? Because that pretty much determines the quality of life. The quality of life means what? You can either say quality of life means I have a big car, I have a big house, I'm eating like whatever I want. That is just one aspect. What is the real true quality of life? True quality of life means I feel happy, I feel joyful, I feel blissful. That is the true quality of life. And Krishna says that it is the gunas that are going to determine the quality of life. See, this is why the wise people, they give an example, and you can notice it around you. If you pay attention, if you are aware, you will notice there may be people who are driving a Mercedes but still looking miserable. And there may be people who are like driving a broken bicycle but looking totally happy and blissful. You see? So that tells you that the quality of life is not really depending on the material that you surround yourself with. It has to be something internal, correct? That's the only explanation. And now Krishna is actually going and classifying that and saying, yes, it is not just internal, it is this gunas. So if you focus on which guna you are aligning with, that will then determine your quality of life. But if you focus on quality of life and try to force a good quality of life, that is why most of us fail. All our lives, we are running behind quality of life without understanding that that is not something you can control. Because if you don't take care of your gunas, it is like, lighting a fire in your room and saying, why am I not feeling cool? And you are upset that you are not feeling cool. How are you going to feel cool? Can you control that feeling that you have? I am not feeling cool. And you are trying to control. You are trying to do all this mind magic. No. Usta. It is cool. It doesn't work, right? Because the fire is still burning. So that is what Krishna is trying to make us aware of. He's saying you need to be aware of those gunas. And as long as you are not aware and as long as you are not doing something about that, the symptoms you cannot control. So he talks about all of that, and then he talks about how these mastery over gunas, they can lead us to liberation. So if you go back to 14.1 and 14.2, Krishna had explained that he said that by having the knowledge of gunas, all the sages, they attained the supreme perfection. And then in 14.2, he says, taking refuge in this knowledge, they attain my nature. And then he says something very powerful. He says, such people, they are not born again, nor are they disturbed during dissolution. In other words, when everything is destroyed, even then they are not impacted. When something new is created, even then they are not impacted. These are what in other parts of Bhagavad Gita, this is the kind of people who are called as Gunatita, who are beyond all gunas. So the word he uses in like 14.5, Krishna is saying, Guna Prakriti Sambhavaha, which is the gunas arise from material nature. We all know that Prakriti nature operates through laws and principles, and everybody knows that. I'm sure nobody has any doubts there. Nature works on laws. That is why when you throw a ball, it will always go down. It's not like, one day it goes down, one day it goes up, and one day it goes sideways. Gravity has it's a law of gravity, it's law of thermodynamics, law of aerodynamics, and everything is a law. Just like that, the gunas impacting us is also a law. So there is no cheating, there is no, so until we figure it out, there is no way we can get liberation. That is the most important part. So it's very, very important. If we understand gunas, then we can understand everything else. If we understand how to, overcome gunas, we will understand how to overcome anything in life. That is the key principle here. So some practical applications. How can we cultivate Sattva Guna? How can we overcome Rajas? How can we overcome Tamas? How can we overcome Sattva Guna? Engage in activities which are sattvic. Like do more of meditation, do more of Nishkama Karma. Krishna has already taught all of this. Do more Shravan, Manan. Very important, sattvic diet. This is why. So now I will again come back to this topic. You cannot say that, I'm somehow very special or I'm somehow, very unique. I will eat tamasic food and I'll still be enlightened. Good luck with that. It is like saying, I'm very special. I will jump from the building, but I will still not fall. Okay, good luck with that. Because that is what is called as delusion. And that itself is a cause of a symptom of tamoguna only. So, and that is why people who are already in Tamoguna, this doesn't make sense to them. But it is a fact. So, Sattvic diet, very, very important. What we put in is what is going to determine the gunas that are active in us. So we recently started this group. We have the Sattvic diet group. So you can see there are a lot of tasty food. Even so, Sattvic doesn't mean boring. Sattvic doesn't mean tasteless. Sattvic actually is very tasty food. So please involve yourself more there, and hopefully all of us are able to maintain a Sattvic diet. Okay, Rajas, how do you minimize Rajas? Again, all Krishna is saying is practice detachment and mindfulness. I'm not going to make it look very difficult. It is very easy. All Krishna is saying is practice detachment and practice mindfulness. You will be able to minimize your Rajas. And how to overcome Tamas, that's what we discussed earlier. Be more disciplined and be consistent. Consistency is the key. For example, if you say that, okay, today I will not have alcohol because it is Ekadashi. Good. At least one day you are trying to be good. But the rest of the, 26 days, you want to party. But how do you think it is going to help? It's not going to help. Because you cannot overcome tamas that way. Okay, you are probably taking a small break from tamas, but you're not overcoming tamas. So, cultivate discipline, good habits, and be consistent. That way you can overcome tamas. And once you do that, practice mindfulness and detachment. Okay, and once you do that also, then do more of Travan, more of Manan, more of Nididhyasan. That is how you go from Tamas to Rajas to Satoguna, and eventually you can overcome that also. See, there is this Upanishad called Mandukya Upanishad. It has a very powerful sloka that talks about the mastery. It talks about how mastery over these gunas can lead to spiritual freedom. So you can note down, and if you are interested, you can go do your own research later. So it is Mandukya Upanishad 1.2.12. It's a very nice sloka. Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanah nirvedam ayat na asti akrutah krutena tat vigyana artam sah gurum eva abhigachet samit pranihi shrotiyam brahmanishtam. It says having, so I will try to go maybe quickly verse by verse because it's very, very beautiful, very powerful here. So it starts with Pariksha Lokana Karma Chittan, which means the journey begins having examined the realms attained by karma. So the journey begins with introspection and examination. So the seeker is referred to here as the Brahmana. So the Brahmana, the word used is Brahmana, but that basically means the seeker. They are scrutinizing the nature of the lokas. Lokas are the realms. And what are the lokas themselves? The lokas are all the fruits of karma. So lokas are for people who are doing fruitive actions. So if you do this, you go to this loka. If you do that, you go to that loka. That is how it is. So, even heavenly realms, they're all based on fruitive actions. However, these realms are karma chitan, which means they are created by karma. Because of that, they are impermanent. Very powerful. So what do? We have to recognize. How do we recognize? By this knowledge we have studied so far. Kshetra, Kshetragya, Gunas, all of that put together, we recognize the impermanence. So we don't run behind these lokas also. So don't ever have a prayer that says, God, give me heaven or let me go to heaven, because heaven is a loka and that is still a temporary destination. Then the next part says, Nirvedam Ayan. He develops disinterest, the seeker. Because once the seeker realizes that all these lokas, even this heaven is temporary, then he develops nirveda, which is detachment. Because the seeker is understanding that no matter how virtuous my deeds are, if I am attached to the fruits, then I can at the most go to a temporary loka, but I can never really reach that ultimate Brahman. So that gives him detachment. Then the third part says, Nastya krutah krutena, which is That which is uncreated cannot be attained through the created. So beautiful, so profound, so beautiful. Because Brahman, which is the ultimate reality, is not created. It is not something that is created. It is not something that can be destroyed. It is akrita, that is uncreated, eternal. Whereas karma is something which is created. Don't we create our karma? So karma is something created. So how can you use something which is created to achieve that which is beyond creation? Very logically, beautifully, they build upon this concept that is why you need to develop detachment. Because if you say you want to be in heaven, that heaven is the outcome of karma, and karma is something that you create, and that which is created can never lead you to that which is not created, that which is beyond creation. So yes, you can go around, do picnic, and you can tour all these lokas, but you will again be back in earth one day, and the cycle is going to continue. So that should help you generate that detachment. Isn't it beautiful? And then the next part says tad vijnanartham. So to gain deeper knowledge of that, realizing this and realizing that my efforts cannot reveal the truth, because whatever your efforts are all your creation. We just discussed how your creation cannot take you to that which is beyond creation. So then that comes to the realization that my efforts alone cannot reveal the truth. That is why if you now go back to the lessons we have learned, it is His grace alone that can help us give that realization. It is only through you need your efforts, but it is not through your efforts that you will get self-realization. It is your efforts, but then it is the grace. Why? Because your efforts are your creation. And through something which is created, you cannot perceive that which is beyond creation. So beautiful. I wish I can do a better job of explaining. I mean, these are such profound concepts, And then the next part says, Sa Gurum eva abhigachet. He must approach a guru. So that is the next part that says, you need to seek guidance from a guru. And that is what the Upanishad, the word used is Gurum eva, which is one must approach a guru and don't attempt to just independently, unravel these mysteries and try to reach, because you need somebody who can look, somebody who can point things out. We cannot even see what is behind our own back, So are we really going on the right direction? Are we actually progressing? You need somebody who can selflessly keep a watch. So that is why the Upanishad also is saying, approach a guru for this. And the next is, it says, Samit Panihi. Approach a guru. How? Approach a guru with firewood in your hand. Very, very symbolic. Because firewood, what does firewood represent? Firewood represents humility, dedication, and readiness to burn, readiness to serve. In other words, the seeker is ready. And the seeker is coming with pranipatena, sevaya, pariprashnena. That is how you approach. That is what is called here as firewood. Go like that to a guru. And then finally it says, Shrotiyam Brahmanishtam. It says, who is well versed in the scriptures and established in Brahman. So, this is how this sloka is going. And then, so the journey from samsara to liberation. So, Shankaracharya, you all know Shankaracharya, very great Acharya, and he has a commentary on the Upanishads. And he has spoken about this particular verse. That is why I took this verse for you, because Shankaracharya himself has picked this verse as a very important teaching. And when Shankaracharya gave a commentary on this sloka, he said that the seeker has to first cultivate vairagya, which is detachment. How to cultivate vairagya? He says that is by recognizing the impermanence and insufficiency of all experiences within samsara. That is what we just discussed. Even if you attain heaven, that is also impermanent. And that realization will give you vairagya. And he says this samsara itself is driven by avidya, ignorance, kama, which is desire, and karma, which is fruitive action. And that traps us in the loop of fleeting pleasures and repeated suffering. No, that is how Shankaracharya is explaining all of this. And so, in other words, Shankaracharya says that if we are going to engage in fruitive actions, in other words, if we are going to be running behind the results of our good deeds or results of our actions, then he says that is going to lead only to temporary outcomes. And temporary outcomes means what? That is what earlier we spoke as Mriga Trishna, right? So it's like mirage, bubbles. And what happens when the bubble bursts? Dukkha, and it is unending because constantly we are in this fruitive actions. Fruitive actions gives temporary results. See, when we expect results, we don't expect them to be temporary. Correct? If I work hard, I should get success, but you don't tell that if I work hard, I should get temporary success. You say, if I work hard, I need success because you assume that success is going to be permanent. But then that is not the law of universe. The law of universe says nothing can be permanent. So I work hard, I get success, but then the success doesn't last. When the success doesn't last, dukkha. You see? So there is no escape. And that is the whole idea. That is the whole concept here. So what is the path forward? What is the lesson for us now? First, I would say practical lesson first. This is probably a good way to conclude the session. So I hope if you're feeling a little sleepy, you can wake up and pay attention again. So the first is examine your goals. Reflect on what your goals are, and are they rooted in something which is permanent, or are they rooted in something which is impermanent? Question your goals. I mean, if you question more and more, eventually you will realize that the only real goal should be realization of the Supreme. Everything else is just temporary. Once that totally sinks in, you will automatically be a Vairagi. You will automatically be a Nishkama Karma Yogi. Second, it leads to the second, detachment. Develop more of Vairagyam. Because you have to realize that everything in the world is temporary and it is necessary for survival of this temporary body. To that extent, do what is required, but that cannot be your goal. And then seek guidance. Approach somebody who is wise. Approach somebody who can play the role of a teacher and approach them the right way. Pick whoever appeals to you. It is important that you feel comfortable with them, but definitely seek guidance. Because as I said, our senses, we ourselves are so limited that somebody else has to come and say, there is a dark spot on your cheek, or there is a dark spot on your, because we cannot see even that. Somebody else has to point out. So how do you think you can, figure out where you are going wrong in your spiritual progress, which is so much more subtle? Somebody has to see, somebody has to point out. Very important. And then commit to self-realization. Because this whole ultimate goal of moksha, liberation, it requires effort, it requires discipline, consistency, and humility. Very, very, very important. All of this again goes back to the first quality of amanitvam, because that amanitvam, if it is not there, then you are giving food to ego. And if the ego keeps growing, then it is going to strengthen your bondage. But then that is totally opposite of what we are trying to accomplish. What we are trying to accomplish is liberation. So you want, liberation, but you are feeding bondage. Does it even make sense? But that is what we do, right? We keep feeding bondage and expecting liberation. It's not going to work. So Krishna says first start with amanitvam. See, it's very funny. There are some people, if you tell them that, hey, you have to control your ego, they will get very offended. But they don't understand that the act of getting offended itself is evidence of ego only. Because if you are not in a mode of ego, how can you get offended? They will get offended. They will tell you that, what makes you think I'm egoistic? That is your misconception, and they'll get all angry. But then this applies to us also. So just imagine somebody telling that you are egoistic. How do you feel about it? As long as you feel offended, that means you are still not even aware of ego and how it is playing a big role in our lives. So let us do that. And with amanitvam, let us revisit all the teachings we have gone through so far. Then it is not really that hard. if you follow the lessons, we are all, law of nature works both ways. If you understand the law, you can fly. And if you don't understand the law, you will fall. Both are there, right? So let us all hope to understand with amanitvam and fly and go towards liberation. My best wishes and blessings. I think with that, I will stop talking. Hare Krishna. I can open the floor. If anybody has any questions, comments, please feel free. Yes, Asha ji?
So Guruji, here in the term like Saguna Brahmana, that means it's the higher range of all Sattva, Tamasa and Rajasa, right?
Yes, it is the maximum sattva, maximum everything. Correct.
So, but what our purpose is like, we have to grow from Tamasa to Rajasa, from Rajasa to Sattva. That means we have to minimize the factors of Tamasa and Rajasa, Gunas.
Correct.
Right? Then, is it because of that only? I think in the chapter 10, Krishna is saying, like, in negative aspects, also, he is good. Like, I think, I don't remember exactly, but something he's saying, like, in the negative aspects, like in the gambling things, also,
Yeah.
he has the highest power. Is it because of that? Because he has, even in the tamasa thing, he has the higher attributes.
Correct. So all he's saying is anything that is manifested, anything that is created, there is nothing that is manifested without Purusha. That is what we learnt in Kshetragya Vibhāga Yoga, where Krishna said that, even a speck of dust is the collaboration between Purusha and Prakriti. So that is what Krishna is explaining, saying that there is nothing. So this is the fundamental difference between some Western theology and the Vedantic perspective. So this is where this concept of God means only good, that philosophy breaks down. Because then you will question, then who created bad? So if God is only good, and then if bad exists, that means there is another creator. But then that goes against this whole concept of God being the absolute. You see the problem. So Vedanta has a very beautiful way of presenting this, and Vedanta says that there is no good or bad, it is all gunas, and it is all, the master is the same. At the end of the day, then our job is to figure out how to understand and how to overcome these gunas. That is the whole lesson. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, Sulataji, you want to add something?
Yeah. So it becomes good or bad upon how we manifest it, like how our gunas are, how because of our sanskaras, how it gets differentiated as good or bad.
In
The
general,
energy
that is true. There is a very famous saying that says there is nothing absolutely good or bad. It is our thinking that makes it so. And we also just now we discussed another example of foul language, for example. Is
Yeah.
foul language itself good or bad? I mean, that depends on how the person is perceiving it. One person is enjoying it, whereas one person is suffering it. But the lesson is neither to enjoy nor to suffer. The lesson is to just be detached. Yeah, Sulataji, you were saying something else?
Yeah, I actually got reminded in I think chapter 5 or so. You had spoken about this, where the soul, that is Dehi, residing in the city of 9 gates.
Yes.
How it can remain happy when it transcends this attachment, desire, when with this knowledge of now kshetragya, when detachment we can know about it, and then how we can transcend this transcend nature of this material world, and then these gunas also. Like with this study of gunas, we can just more we can have the knowledge that we can have that objectivity, that soul is beyond everything, and
Exactly.
how it can remain unaffected like that lotus flower, with all
Yes.
these dualities.
Totally. Like when you get a bad dream, I don't know if it happens to you all, but it happens to me that sometimes when I'm in the worst part of my dream, Fortunately, I'm able to tell myself this is probably just a dream, and I'll be fine when I wake up. And I feel very thankful for waking up. But that's the whole idea. There's this whole life. This life that we have is also like a dream. And we need to be mindful that this is not the absolute reality. And once we have that, then you'll be able to deal with it better. That is the whole concept. And our goal should be to have that absolute awakening, which is self-realization.
And to remain always in this Satoguna, you had told us, I think, long that this 5 vitamins A, B, C, D, E. A is association of devotees, B is books, scriptural reading through Guru, and C is chanting, D is deity worship, E is eating prasadam. So
No.
that
D is diet. There is just
E
A, B,
is
C,
eating
D.
prasadam.
Yeah. You're excellent. Thank you for reminding us. It's A, B, C, D. A, you are right, association. B is books, C is chanting, and D is diet,
That.
not deity worship.
Mhm.
Diet is very important. And these 4 things, definitely they will keep us in Sattva Guna. And consistency will help us overcome that and eventually get the grace of God. But keep in mind that even doing ABCD, you do it with amanitvam. You do it with amanitvam, then you get the grace of God. Otherwise, it is still your efforts, and you may at the most become a sattvic person. That's okay. But the absolute goal is to go beyond. So there, you need the grace of God. I hope you all understand why grace of God is important. Because of that technical explanation we just saw. Because that God is beyond creation. And if we want to achieve that which is beyond creation, that cannot happen using things that are created. So your efforts, your actions, they are all created, right? So yes, that is important, but that is not enough. So you do what you are supposed to do, but if you do it with amanitvam, then that opens up God's grace, and which is that magical ingredient. And God has said, the Bhakti Sutra, they have said that opens up your Guru's grace also, and that opens up God's grace. And that is how you actually reach that absolute goal. So,
Guruji, one more thing, you gave an example where you said, like, if someone is saying something bad about you, then you should think of yourself and you should ask yourself, you should think deeply. Okay, that is okay. Another thing you said, like, if someone is saying bad about it, you should not enjoy, and even you should not feel bad. Okay, these things we are daily dealing with. Like, let's suppose some people we are dealing daily with them, and we know that they are doing such a things. So how should be our behavior?
see, our behavior, basically, let me try to give 2 or 3 answers. Hopefully, then I hope I would have understood what you are trying to ask here. But basically, the point is, if somebody calls you a dog, do you have to start barking? That's the point. You don't become a dog because somebody called you a dog, right? So just like that, if somebody calls you anything, if they call you using some derogatory terms, you don't have to make it your reality. That is what is meant by don't be attached. What they are saying is based on their guna, but how you react is based on your guna. The problem happens only when they are acting out of tamoguna and you are also reacting out of tamoguna. That is the whole, So I can recommend a beautiful book to you. And this book was recommended to me when I was 10 years old. And when I was 10 years old, one of my uncles, because I used to be a very talkative person. I'll be questioning this, questioning that, questioning this. And then he told, read this book. But that book is not very simple book. The title is, I am okay, you are okay. Beautiful book, very simple concept. But if you can read it, I'll really appreciate. That will have the answer that you are seeking, Asha ji. And it is not religious. It's a very, very psychological, very simply explained concept and very empowering. If you can internalize what that book says, I think you would have mastered personal relationships. Okay, looks like
You had
the
also
videos have
mentioned that,
started. Yes,
Guruji,
Chitraji?
you had also mentioned that in such situation, practicing pause is also very important, because
Exactly.
in that moment when if somebody says something that you didn't expect, or if you're in an unpredictable situation anytime, then rather than letting your gunas take over and making you react, just by practicing pause, I think we should be able to handle the situation in much better way, that we don't
Totally.
regret after.
Totally. That pause helps us avoid reacting the same way. That pause helps us, reacting in a tamoguna for somebody's action which was tamoguna, because at the end the result will also be tamasic then. So we don't want that. So excellent.
It's like the focus on problem, not the person.
Yes, focus on the problem and see what I'm saying is do what is required to be done. You should be assertive. Assertively tell the person that such language is not appreciated and it is definitely not permitted in my home, or it's not permitted in my business or whatever. Be assertive, but don't let it impact you, is the whole lesson. Remember the teaching of two arrows. The first arrow is what happens, and the second arrow is how we react. And we always have control over how we react. And if we exercise that control, that would itself be a very transformative experience in our life.
And also, Guruji, like we cannot change people. Like, we meet these people, we can say 99%, like, they are all.
Hare Baba, it is so hard to even change ourselves.
Yeah. We also shouldn't come to across as a kusangi to anybody else. That also we have to bear in mind.
Yeah, I mean,
And
we cannot even change ourselves. How can we change somebody else?
so we need to, by differing, as you said, by evolving this way, we can lead by example, try to lead by example, so that,
Yes,
it's-
totally. I think we have learned a lot of important lessons in the past few sessions. So my request is to revisit. I know we have, it's already 1.5 hours today, so I will not keep you any longer. I will let you all go. But I really appreciate all of you, your attention and your, presence and your support. Very grateful to all of you. Thank you so much. And looking forward to the next session. And keep introspecting. And if you have any deeper questions, make sure you bring it with you in the next session. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.